Well, hello and welcome to the Marketing Guides for Small Business. I'm Jen, and I'm joined today by Ken, Ian, and Paul, who are all big fans of email newsletters. I don't know if you know that or not. Now, that's our topic today. Last week, we talked about how to build your email list. And if you haven't already, please go and have a listen to that episode, as building the list is a key part to email marketing. So email marketing is a huge topic, and the area of this episode we'll focus on is the email newsletter. Now, think of this as the daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly newsletter you get from your company or from a company. So your company would send it, you receive this kind of email marketing from a company that you subscribe to. Now, with the content, some of them are full of deals, others of announcements, others share tips, others share case studies, others deep dive into one topic per issue. There are many ways to set up your email newsletter, but the key is to keep it going. So today we'll talk about why have a company newsletter, how to figure out the cadence, what to say, and how to keep it in motion past the chasm of what seems to be the third issue. It seems like folks can get something going out the door, and then by the third issue, it drops off. So we can't be having that if it's supposed to be a really effective email marketing tool to grow your business. So with that, we're going to jump into the questions. First question for everybody here. Who has a company newsletter and what do you cover? Let me start with you, Ken.
We do. It's called Wisdom Wednesday. We've been doing it consistently every week for probably 3 years now, maybe even 4 years. Our subscriber numbers, I think, are about 1,200. And we always try to, it's a combination of things. One is we always have a specific topic that we write and include. And that's done every week. But then we also curate a lot of really good content from other sources talking about a variety of marketing topics and just bundle that information together. And we also use it to promote this podcast every week, both the upcoming episode as well as the recording from the last week. So it's really critical for us to do that. And we'll talk all about the reasons why.
Good. What about you, Ian? What about your company?
Yeah, so we do a newsletter, and sustainability, just like you were saying, is a key aspect to that. I think we'll probably get into this, so I won't share how we do sustainability at this point. But our structure is pretty simple. We have a really compelling intro every month, and I should say it's called Marketing Fuel. Ugh. And we just do ours monthly. We don't do it weekly. So we have a great intro, really with a strong call to action. We have service highlights. So one of the things that we learned with both our clients and ourselves is that nobody truly understands your business as well as you do, and nobody truly understands your service or product offering like you do. And even current clients need to be reminded that, oh, you do that. So we do what we call a service highlight or feature each month. And then we cover our latest blogs or content that we've created. Like if we have a new ebook, we'll cover that. We often share a link to the podcast, although I like what Ken was saying about sharing the most recent one as well as past ones. And then, of course, we do social links. So follow us on, Twitter, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff in order to create. Again, it's all related to strengthening our relationship with our contacts.
Wow. Great. And Paul, I kind of lumped you in with Ken's. Is that okay, or do you have something separate that you end up doing?
No.
Okay. Good answer.
We just build it.
He takes care of the technical side.
You make sure the email
newsletter that we send out every
right?
week.
Yeah.
Good.
And what about you, Jen? What's yours like?
Ours is monthly, goes out monthly, and it's very different than you guys'. Ours is one tip. So we dive into one thing, and the whole newsletter is about that one thing. So what we do is we do a video. So it's usually a video of myself explaining the one thing of the month. So folks can come and watch the video, watch me talk about it. And then we have the transcript, which is then we put it through a real live person to edit it. So if people feel like they'd rather read, so they can read to understand the one tip. It is long, it goes long. And it's meant to really, if a reader is either unaware of, confused of, or frustrated with that one thing, that issue is meant to make them feel comfortable with it, demystify certain things, and then give them the confidence that we can help them with that one thing. So, for example, we've had things out there like how to brief graphic designers, right? Really diving into how to do that properly. We've had other topics about newsletters. We've had topics about white papers. So the reason we narrowed in on one thing is because, I mean, marketing, there's hundreds of things you could be doing for marketing. So we figured, okay, if we can show our expertise and really dive into one thing to make somebody feel more empowered about it and to gain the confidence that we'd be able to help them with it, that's what we do. So that's how we do it. We just keep to one thing. We don't promote the podcast, which I guess we should do, but that's our.
I love this. Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Good.
Cool.
But I think that shows the listeners that there's really a whole bunch of different ways that you can do the newsletter, right? So it doesn't have to be, one way or the other, what really works for your business.
Absolutely.
So with that, Ian, why should a company consider starting a newsletter if they don't already have one going?
Yeah, I think the first really big compelling reason is because it will generate more business for you. Just to share a couple stats, I did my homework. I wanted to see what stats there were related to e-newsletters. Lots of these are business to business, but I'll also share an anecdote from a business to consumer side. So 40% of business to business marketers said e-newsletters are one of their highest converting marketing strategies, which actually was a surprise to me. I knew email marketing was, but not necessarily the e-newsletter for those B2Bs. 31% of B2B marketers say newsletters are the best way to nurture leads. Again, I don't know if I agree with that 100% because I think there's some other strategies you can use, but the stat made me think about, okay, like people are, B2B marketers are leveraging them a lot. And then I can tell you from B2C side, so just from the dental side, so I have dental clients who every single month, it is like clockwork. We send out their newsletter for them and they see an influx of appointments after every single newsletter we send out. So that's, to me, that's the proof is in the pudding. It gets people to act. But the other reasons you should consider that, so yes, increasing sales, of course, every business wants to do that. But consistent communication with your contacts. So you have to remember, this is a relationship. You're building relationships. You want to stay top of mind. You have to keep communicating. And this is a very efficient way to stay top of mind with your customers and contacts. Absolutely. And then, I was mentioning about sharing like a service highlight. This is a really great way for you as a business, whether you're B2B or B2C, to share with your customers, prospects, contacts, just different aspects of your business that they might not know about. Maybe you're sharing about your charitable giving as a business. Whatever it is, you're growing that relationship and strengthening the connection between you. So that's kind of the key aspects I would see for an e-newsletter. Curious if anybody else has any other ones.
I'll add to that sending a regular email newsletter keeps your list up to date. And lists go bad really fast. And there's nothing that's going to destroy your deliverability rates faster than if you have a bad list. If you have a bunch of bad, old, out-of-date email addresses that bounce, that no longer work. And so mechanically, it's important to do that because your list is really important, like we talked about last week. And this is the best, easiest way to keep it up to date.
Very good. Paul, how often should a newsletter be sent and how would a company determine where to start? Like, do we start weekly? Do we go daily? Do we go quarterly? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that seems like a straightforward question, and the answer, unfortunately, is it depends. It depends on what your product is. Is it something that has a high rebuy rate, so to speak? Then, or if you have a lot of different products, then you would want to send it out more often. Obviously, I would say at least twice a month, but maybe once a week, maybe every day. We're in marketing
Mhm.
and SEO and things like that. So and SEO changes all the time. So, I'm subscribed to some newsletters. I get a newsletter every day because the industry changes that much. But if going back to what Ian was saying about it being a relationship, you don't want to annoy people. And if you have a longer sales cycle, it might be more of staying top of mind and keeping people informed and letting, because people are going to shop around. And if you have a longer sales cycle, you don't want to forget them, but you probably don't want to be sending them a newsletter every day. So you kind of have to look at your product, at your clients, your customer base, what you're selling, product, service, whatever it is. And Ken mentioned about keeping your list clean. That's also true. Is it if you send it out every 2 months, people change their email addresses. So it's it's just not an easy question. There's no straightforward. You send it out every 2 weeks. There's your answer. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work that way.
Yeah, but there's also the freedom to change too. I mean, the key thing is a company should start, and if they're finding, you know what, we have the bandwidth to increase the frequency, then by all means do it. If they're finding, you know what, we got to really pull back and do this monthly, you can do that too. I would just say that whatever the promise is, that you keep to that promise. So when you, as a subscriber, when signing up, often you get the message saying, oh, great, we'll be in touch with you daily. We'll be in touch with you weekly, whatever it is. So if you're going to change, I would say that you want to let your subscribers know, like, okay, we're going up to a weekly newsletter. If this is too much, you can stay with the monthly one, that kind of thing. So, but
Yeah.
there is some flexibility there, right?
When someone first signs up, that's a great place to set expectations with the responder newsletters. But you can always change. But I would look at your open rates. How often are people opening them? And again, that you kind of have to dig into that data because, like I said, I get certain newsletters every day. I don't open and read every one of them, but I still want to receive them. And I know that's something that we talked about in other podcasts as well. But yeah, there are certain things you can look at once you start sending them out to kind of get an idea of how often they should be sent.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, Paul hit on this, but I just want to kind of spend a little bit more time on this. It really largely depends on, are you business to business? Are you business to consumer? Who's your ideal customer? What's the value of what you're selling? Is it a lower ticket kind of a thing? Is it a bigger ticket kind of a thing? If you're an e-commerce business, you might send emails daily or 3 times a week, for example, just to promote different products that are available. If you're a marketing company, you can do it weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever makes sense. But so Paul's getting all jiggy with us, I guess, today, huh? So
My phone's been blowing up all morning.
but I think it's really important. You always want to think about who is on your list, who's your ideal customer, and what would they want to see, what do they need to see, and then how do you kind of moderate that with staying top of mind.
Very true. Ken, your turn again for a question. So how do you decide what to say in the newsletter and what kind of format to have it show up in, like how to get it designed?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's important to have it designed, and it should be consistent. It should be branded.
Mm.
It should have all of the key elements. It should have a header that's clearly recognizable. It should have the footer information where unsubscribe links, but also social follows, how to click through to the website, the business information, all of those things should be a part of it. So design that. And then in terms of the content that goes inside the body of it, really, I think it's a matter of, again, you can experiment a little bit. There are a lot of formats that work. Jen, you talked about one key topic that you focus on each newsletter. We have kind of a hybrid where we talk about offers, we talk about a highlighted service that we offer, we talk about a big problem we see in the industry that we're trying to help people understand and maybe solve. And then we curate content to just create a broad brush of, hey, if you care about Instagram, there's going to be an article about Instagram, or there might be one about search engine optimization, or a variety of marketing topics, just because we have a fairly diverse subscriber base. And so, I would just encourage people to kind of put yourself in the people who are on your list in their shoes, and if you look, you may have multiple lists too, right? And that's good. That's okay. You may have people on a weekly email list because they signed up for a specific program, or they said, hey, I'm interested in this type of a solution that you guys offer. But then you may have other people who sign up for something completely different. And the regularity and the needs of that newsletter might be completely different because the dynamics of the sale and the ideal customer are completely different. So, but there are so many different ways that you can create content. Ian talked about extracts of your blogs. You want to use your email newsletter to drive traffic to your blogs. It's hugely important. Just because you publish it doesn't mean people are going to find it and read it. You need to give that assistance and that drive that traffic. Email is a great way to do that, especially with people when people subscribe to a list. Jen, the video idea you talked about, I think is fantastic. You can curate content. I'm not a big fan of curating content anymore for social because it just doesn't perform. But in terms of an email, I still think that curated content gives you the ability to brand yourself as an expert, because you're doing the hard work of saying, here are a bunch of different articles that I want to share with you that I think are important, and I did the hard work to kind of figure out that stuff for you. And now you just have the luxury of kind of scanning through and saying, yeah, I don't really care about that this week. Oh, but this is an interesting one. And so that curation role still attributes massive value and authority and expertise to you. So I think that's always a great strategy. And then last but not least, by all means, include offers and calls to action to get people to sign up for services that you're offering, special promotions that you're launching. I love Ian's idea that he mentioned about highlighting something that you're doing to give back to the community, through charitable giving or volunteerism, or even highlighting one of those businesses, even if you're not involved, just drawing attention to them and say, hey, look, we think that this is a great cause. Learn more about them. It's all about creating value. Email marketing is about creating value. And statistics show there's nothing that converts better ultimately than email marketing in general for most businesses. So you want to use your list, you want to stay top of mind, and you don't want to abuse it. You never want to abuse it. We all have signed up for these things where we wind up getting 2 or 3 emails a day from people. And it's like, you know what? That's the fastest way to get marked as either spam or unsubscribe. And unsubscribe is a better outcome for you as an emailer, because that's people saying, hey, I really don't want this information anymore. Right. But if they're marking it as spam, that can have serious impacts on your delivery rate, and also ultimately on it's going to impact the SEO of your website and the findability of your website potentially.
Yeah.
May I add one more thing, because this is just
Yeah.
a pet peeve with any emails from a business, but specifically about newsletters because of the length of the content usually, is it has to be mobile readable, people.
True.
That means test it on an iPhone, test it on an Android, or in the system that you use, make sure you test it for mobile devices. Because I can't tell you, even today, the number of newsletters I get where the text is so small it's not readable on my phone, at least not with these eyes anymore. And that absolutely drives me crazy. So test it, make your text a little bit bigger if you have to, but just test it, people. Because
That's right.
most people actually read stuff on their phones now, right? That's often our first point of contact with an email.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Oh, good point. Good point. So, Ian, Ken had all these compelling reasons about, why have the newsletter and what to say and whatnot. So, why do you think companies end up stalling on their newsletter? I mean, they start it gets going, and I flagged issue number 3 as the one where a lot of companies kind of fall off the cliff on this. So, why do you think it's such a big problem to keep this thing going internally?
Yeah, I mean the first one I think should be obvious, although it's not always with e-newsletters, because you think of it like any other email you send out as a business, right? But that's having a plan. Like, you really do need to have a plan, and you need to have a structure. Like Ken talked about his structure, you talked about your structure for your e-newsletters. I talked about my structure. Like, you have a structure that you live in so that you can very easily produce these in a sustainable manner. The other aspect I think that is so critical is businesses that fail to do this consistently, they don't have accountability. So no one truly is accountable and held responsible for getting that e-newsletter out on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, whatever it is you've agreed to. And their feet aren't being held to the fire to get that done. It might just be like, oh, John, our receptionist, he's going to do it whenever he has a chance, right? That doesn't work, and
Right.
and you can't adhere to what people's expectations are if you do it that way, and the ball will get dropped. The other thing I think that's really critical for people to understand, and this is true with any kind of marketing writing, is that a lot of businesses don't have the skill set within their business. I see this all the time with any kind of writing. Like, they say, "Oh, well." We talked about this when we talked about blog posts, but do you have a blog post, sir or madam? Of course we have blogs. When was the last one you published? 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago? That's not a blog, right? That's history, and they're probably archived already. So in the same way, like, even though, yes, anybody who has pretty rudimentary writing skills can do this, it doesn't mean they're necessarily good at it. They don't get charged up about it. It's not their superpower. Like, you want somebody who it's their superpower. Like, you give it to them, they get energy from doing this. They know how to create a subject line that's compelling. They know how to put calls of action that are compelling, and the results ultimately, which will keep the sustainability going for the business. Because when the business sees results, they'll go, man, why didn't we do this before? So I think not having that skill set of content creation and content writing within your business is a really critical piece. And that's where companies like our own, we do have those skill sets because we invest in those types of people because we know the value of them. And then the other, I think, is just the historical, like, oh, we tried a newsletter. We did it 3 times. Maybe we did it for a year. And we didn't see results. And sometimes that's because they actually didn't track results, or they couldn't appropriately attach results to their newsletter. Part of it might just be because they couldn't do it in a sustainable manner. So it just wasn't creating great results. But if you put, I see this all the time. If you put somebody with that superpower, or team that has that power in there, you will see great results.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts on that anyways.
Those are great points. And also too, just because it's a newsletter, well, I guess it depends on what kind of content you have in there. I was going to say you can batch these a quarter at a time. So if you have a monthly newsletter,
Absolutely.
even a weekly newsletter, you could, take a chunk of time, get 12 issues in the can, and, kind of away you go. So I guess, and I say depending, because some newsletters are very, they make a point of having very timely articles in there, right? So you could even have it, the skeleton structure, which just leaves, a few minutes to grab something timely to slot in there. It doesn't have to be this monstrous, from square one every time you need to put out an issue. So
Yeah,
there's
agreed. And I think
the
that goes
ways.
back to the accountability and responsibility aspect, because if
Mm,
somebody, where I see that happening, or where I've seen it happening over the years, is when like we as partners to our clients, we do that kind of stuff because we are trying to maximize our efficiency in how we create content, because content is a heavy load.
yeah.
I've also seen it when managing internal marketing departments, is when somebody has personal accountability on producing these things and they want to be super efficient because it's part of their portfolio of work they do. So they do have other accountabilities. They want to be super efficient. And that's where I see that that bulk creation and happens. And to your point, Jen, like sometimes magic happens when you do a bunch of them at the same time, because you get into a flow, like this creative flow, and you're in the customer's mindset. And if you have to keep jumping in and out of that, sometimes you lose that continuity.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Paul, a question for you on the software systems. So what are some of the easy and or free email newsletter software systems to use? And then why? I got this question a couple of weeks ago, so it may roll your eyes, but let's answer it because it's out there. Why does a company need to use an email software system? Why can't they just send from their company email address? Could you address those?
Yeah, that's kind of a domain question. That second one,
Mm-hmm.
but the reason you don't want to let me talk about that first. The reason you don't really want to do that is because if you're using an email system, you have less of a chance of getting blacklisted. And there's technical reasons for that I won't get into here and bore everybody. But
Well, I think it's worth going into that a little bit, though,
A
Paul.
little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah,
Well,
because the pushback I would get is, okay, we have a small list, like we have 25 people. We're just starting out. These customers all know about us. It would just be like sending a group email. Like we're not talking thousands. We're talking a company getting started for the first time, and it was a legit question. Like, why can't we just do a group email out to them?
well, even if you have a small list, if they're not expecting it from you, they may simply mark it as spam or delete it and ignore it. So even if you have a small list, and you're just starting out, you have to have some kind of introductory email
Yeah.
letting people know that you're going to be sending out a newsletter, and that's a good time to have them opt in.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons for sending from your domain is so people recognize it. And that's where these systems come in. There's MailChimp, there's MailerSend, there's Sendinblue, there's Mailgun. Some of them have a free version, but keep in mind with the free version, you kind of get what you pay for, kind of thing.
Mm.
And the reason you probably don't want to use the free version is because when you get a paid version of most of these, they will, if an email bounces, well, first of all, a lot of them have on the paid version email verification,
Mm-hmm.
which you can cleanse the list before uploading it, or you can use their email validation service. But if something bounces back, or if someone unsubscribes, if you're sending it, and I think what you meant, can I just send it from my business email, like they send it straight out of their Outlook?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly a question I got asked the other week.
So the problem with that is, are you going to track unsubscribes and manually remove them? Because like Ken said, you want unsubscribing is a good thing because it keeps your list clean. And if someone unsubscribes, and that's the other thing, are you going to put an unsubscribe link in there? A lot of these sending services, at least on the paid version, will automatically insert that for you, even if you already have it, which you should. You should always have an unsubscribe link. But then if someone clicks that unsubscribe link, what's your process for actually removing them? Because if someone unsubscribes and you don't actually unsubscribe them, you're going to piss them off. And they're going to wind up marking it as spam, which causes damage to your domain. So that is one of the most important reasons to use one of these services and to use a paid version, is because if someone unsubscribes, you don't have to worry about it. They will automatically not send emails to them. So does that answer your question? I mean, I don't want to get...
That answers that question too. I was also going to say, like, beyond the technical side of it too, if you're the business owner, probably as important as email marketing is to your business, is probably not the thing that you should necessarily be doing. So how on earth do you offload that task to someone else if everything is supposed to come out of your email? You know what I mean? So there's another thing about that as you look to scale or to
there's a lot
to grow.
wrong with that.
So
I mean, what are you going to do? Are you
There
going to blind CC? All
like
25
50 people, 25 people,
25
exactly.
people? Yeah. I mean, that looks weird. It looks weird. You're missing a branding opportunity as well. There are a whole lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. And one thing I will add, as people are looking for these service providers, one thing that they'll probably run across is an SMTP provider. Okay, that's what a lot of these are. Even though they do have, you can go directly into them. For example, say Mailgun. Yes, you can send directly out of Mailgun. You can send directly out of MailChimp. But if you're using a CRM, a lot of them will integrate with these different providers so that you don't have to actually, once you have your account with this SMT provider set up, you don't have to actually log in. You can send it directly out of your CRM. The CRM on the back end has this integration, and ultimately it's, even though you're sending out of your CRM, I'm probably confusing everyone now, even though you're sending directly out of your CRM, it's actually going out of this other piece of software that keeps track of bounces and unsubscribes and will automatically block them from getting any more of your emails. Which, again, if you're sending straight out of your email client or directly out of your Gmail, which is always a supremely bad idea, and someone unsubscribes and you don't have a way to track that and actually unsubscribe it, you can risk getting your domain blacklisted.
But it's interesting you bring up the CRM. So CRM, we're getting into kind of sales territory here too. I mean, one of the neat things about having the analytics on the email marketing side of things is, you say you have Joe and you're trying to get a deal with Joe and Joe's not responding, but you see that Joe's opening your emails. So at least, Joe's still interested and whatnot. So it can help. That visibility, the analytics can really help with your sales process. So that's how this marketing tactic can really tie into sales, tie into growing your business. Yeah. And with that leads us right into your next question, Ken. How can the newsletter analytics help a business see if this is a useful tool for their company or if it's just something else to do?
Yeah. So there are a couple of different tools that Paul talked about that I wanted to just kind of step back real quick. So there's the SMTP provider, which may or may not give you the ability to send out those emails, even a designed email. Then there are email service providers, and maybe it's just me who makes this classification, but for me, it's helpful to kind of make sense of this. The purpose of an email service provider, one is they are focused on deliverability. It's their job and their tool and their reputation on the line to make sure that email, the whole email campaign of everybody that uses their tools is done in the right way. We've got this thing called the CAN-SPAM Act. You guys in Canada, I'm sure, have, And so it's really, there are consequences if you're violators of that. And so, using a tool like MailChimp or Constant Contact, Aweber, there are so many of these different tools that are out there. Then you've got CRMs that have these capabilities. They're all, it gives you the ability to clone campaigns, clone templates. So it's got time saving features. And then it's got the analytics. So it tells you, open rates, click through rates, even if you had the same link 3 times in the body of your email, which one of the 3 did they click? Did they click on the one that was from a button? Did they click on the one that was hyperlinked text? And so now you can start to measure messaging effectiveness as well. So, and then you can monitor subscribe rates, unsubscribe rates, I should say, bounce rates, soft bounce rates, hard bounce rates. Soft bounce rates are going to happen for a variety of reasons. They're not necessarily the worst thing, although you do want to kind of pay attention to them. Hard bounces you need to take action on. You need to probably work on making sure you're cleansing your list if the tool you're using isn't doing that for you, because hard bounces are seen as bad things by for email delivery purposes. But one of the statistics that I think is a really false positive that a lot of people get, it's like likes on social media, and that's open rates. Open rates are false metrics in most email providing tools. The reason for that is because a lot of browsers or email systems like Outlook might actually open in a preview pane, so that they show the contents of that email. That may or may not trigger that to be seen as an opened email. And just because it's open doesn't mean that anybody read it. Sometimes you open it just to get rid of it. So it's not a good metric. What's much more important are click-through rates, and probably open rates over time. I mean, you want to kind of see that people are opening these over a period of time. If they're not, then maybe you even specifically email them and say, hey, look, or you take that list of chronically low, chronically low readers or engagers with your email list, and you may take that sub list and send them a message to say, hey, we're just doing some list maintenance. We just wanted to make sure you were still interested in receiving our emails. And you give them an opportunity to opt out. The goal is you want to get the highest performing list you can. That's going to be the best outcome for you over a period of time. And so sometimes taking that list maintenance activity where you go in and you say, okay, people who haven't opened my emails in the last 6 months, I want to send them a specific email asking them if they're still interested in being subscribed, and give them the ability to opt in, or give them a specific request to say, in order to keep getting these, you need to re-opt in. And that improves your delivery over time. So these tools have a lot of metrics and analytics that you can take advantage of. And it's ultimately important to try to do those things.
Absolutely. Wow. We have covered a lot today, and I want to ask everyone, throw the floor open for any last thoughts on this topic that we haven't covered yet. Anything burning that I haven't asked you guys yet?
Well, I don't know if it's burning.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Paul.
look at this, everybody.
But
Jumping in.
Jump in at once.
When you're looking, we talked about these different email software, SMTP providers, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
When you're looking at them, a free version might be okay for you, but you have to look at what you get in there. How you're always going to be limited on number of subscribers. There's going to be limits on how many emails, and how does that limit? Is it a monthly limit or is it a daily limit? A lot of times they'll say you have this limit, but then you have to read the fine print and you find out you can only send out 100 emails a day.
Mm.
Well, that might be okay for you, or it might not. It depends on the size of your list, and then also look long term, because there's some providers out there. I won't mention any of them by name, but there's some providers that up front it looks really inexpensive, but when you get a larger list, they are outrageously expensive. So it just keep those kind of things in mind. Think of it long term as well. Don't, if you're going to look at a free version, make sure you really understand what you're getting.
The other thing about free versions is they usually have their branding on there.
Mhm.
So if that's okay, I mean, it may be okay. If you're a nonprofit and you don't really want to pay, you've got a list of less than 2,000, you might want to use a free email marketing tool.
Yeah.
You know, you can still brand it. You can still create your own template. It's just going to have the provider's branding on there as well.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that occurred to me while we were talking through this topic is we didn't really talk about personalization, but that can be a really provide really big impact as far as true open rates and also click-through rates, because if you can personalize your subject line and then personalize the email, people know that it's framed in a larger context, like, you know, you are mass mailing it, but personalization has been shown to increase all of the good metrics. The other thing I thought of as well was I've seen e-newsletters and other content development work really well for sales teams, where you might have, you know, it could be a small organization with 1 or 2 salespeople. It could be a huge organization with hundreds of salespeople. But you can, as a business, you can actually leverage your e-newsletters as content to share from the salespeople. So where I've seen that done, or how I've seen that done really well, is, you know, the business might send out a mass e-newsletter, but the salespeople are intimate with the conversations with the clients and prospects. And so, for example, in the marketing world, you know, if my business was big enough, or if I had a broader sales team, you know, and we sent out our newsletter and the topic was SEO, my salesperson could send out, you know, hey, Joe, I don't know if you saw this in our newsletter, but we were speaking specifically about SEO this month, and it links to this great content piece. I just wanted to make you aware, and boom, you've created another contact point. And again, with any kind of communication, it's all about consistently being in front of your prospects and clients and being there when they're ready to make the decision. So you can help spur the decision, but sometimes it's just a matter of being there when they're ready, and not letting your competition own the space as well, because we haven't really talked about, like, no business lives in a vacuum. Maybe your clients, maybe your prospects are on your competitors' lists. So that's also another impetus to get out there and make sure you're consistent.
Ian, can you explain and maybe give a couple of examples of personalization?
Yeah, I mean, at its simplest, I mean, it's a mail merge, right? So if you're using a CRM, you can say, hey, like in your subject line, you could say, Ian, check out our latest marketing fuel this month, where we highlight blah, right? SEO. And then, of course, you say, hey, Ian, and then you start your newsletter, right? That's at its simplest. Everybody kind of understands that that's personalization, and it's automated personalization. But there's lots of really, really cool ways to personalize stuff now. Even I saw there's stuff where you can actually that's not the right word, but superimpose a person's name in a GIF or a JPEG. So you could actually personalize images in an email now. The craziest one I saw recently was where it was video personalization, where you can actually have it so that it's a merge. It pulls in the person's name, and the computer basically creates a personalized video for people. Again, you have to figure out if that's appropriate en masse. Other types of personalization I've seen that work really well are if your CRM and if your business tracks people's interests. So what they're looking at on your website, what they've expressed interest to you in conversations, right? You can tag them related to topics, and then you could actually send out topical, relevant information associated with those tags that those people are tagged with in your CRM. And that's where it gets really, really powerful, because now you're customizing what they're seeing on an ongoing basis. Just to finish that thought, bigger businesses generally have I'm trying to think of the name, but it's almost like a dashboard of your interests. So when you sign up with them for the newsletter, if they're big enough, you can say, I'm interested in SEO, I'm interested in e-newsletters, I'm interested in Google Ads. And then the newsletter is actually customized for those topics. So you can get pretty sophisticated with personalization, but at its simplest, I think even just putting a person's name in can separate your emails from other people's emails.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ken?
Yeah, no, that I'm glad you explained that. We actually also have a tool which I think is great for small businesses who don't have these big budgets, where you can curate content, and then the email platform that we use, and we do this as a service for our clients. They, based on the recipients, what they click on in terms of articles drives the curation so that they get a unique email from anybody else based on their past click-through history of the articles that they were reading. So for us, since we're in marketing, we may talk about YouTube, we may talk about social media, we may talk about SEO, we may talk about branding, all those different topics. As people start to click through an email that we might put together using this type of an approach, Ian, you may constantly click on every article that has something to do with YouTube. That means that the next article and the series of articles you're going to get, it's going to make sure that you're going to get YouTube's content. Now, not exclusively, but it's going to make sure that it's delivering the content that you're telling the system, hey, this is what I care about. This is what I read the most of. So it's a pretty cool thing. And it's it's a content curation strategy. And when I say content curation, that can include your own content. You can provide your own RSS feeds from your own social media, from your blog, from your YouTube channel to feed the content that's created, and then let this engine kind of deliver the best results based on how people are engaging with it. So really some cool technologies that are out there. I'll just say, I think it's absolutely critical. Every business should have an email newsletter. Most of them are going to push back on that. I think it's a huge mistake. Do not let your own personal biases dictate what you decide to do. Unless every single customer of yours is a clone of yours, I think you're making a big mistake. It's like, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Unsubscribes are okay. Unopened emails are okay. That doesn't mean that people are not interested, and it doesn't mean that you're still getting registered in their brains when they get an email in their inbox from you, whether they open it or not. They may immediately delete it and not read it. That's okay. You still got the impression. You still got the top of mind hit that you needed to have. They're going to read what they need to read. If if the subject line is compelling and it's what's the word? Situational, and timely for them, they're going to click through and they're going to read it, and they may see value, and that's just going to build that relationship even deeper for you. So just because you get annoyed getting emails from certain people, don't let that bias you. There are so many bad actors. Don't let the bad actors keep you from doing one of the most effective things that you could do for your business, and that is email marketing. Statistics show the return on investment in email marketing is ridiculous, and no other, and it's way better than social media for most businesses. It's way better than almost any other channel that's out there. So email, a constant, regular email, whether it's a newsletter, whether it's a tip, whatever you call it, newsletters may be a longer form of, with multiple pieces of information in there, where Jen's, I don't know that I'd categorize yours as a newsletter per se conceptually, but it's a regular email that you're sending out on a regular basis. And it's by design, and it's got a topical focus. Keep doing it. It's important. It's hugely important.
Hey, one thing that came to mind as well, in just something that we're doing for clients, especially in the trades right now, but I think this covers every business right now, because everybody's looking to hire people. It's tough out there for any business. And that's using your newsletter to leverage your relationships with satisfied clients, to actually keep their eyes open and to spread the word that you're looking for people. And you can talk about that in your newsletter, which I think is
Great point.
you'd be silly not to.
Great point.
Well, good. Well, thanks, guys. I think this is a good place to wrap up. Thank you to Ian, Paul, and Ken for sharing your thoughts on this important topic. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. We hope you found this topic really valuable. If you have, please share the link to it with other businesses who could benefit from our advice. We're going to see you next week.
And share it through your own email newsletters if you
Oh,
like.
there we go. Good hook. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.